Hello, Internet! Welcome to episode 279 of the Assorted Calibers podcast. The second-rate podcast is a little bit for everyone. I'm Weer'd, and tonight I am joined. She's wonderful. She's the greatest hostess in the entire universe, and in some orange counties. Aaron Paulette! How you doing, Aaron?
In some orange counties?
This is a Sean thing. He was just saying, like, most states have an orange county, and it's one of those, yeah, they do. Not Massachusetts and not Maine.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. I only know of two of them, one here in Florida and one in California.
There's also,
there's an orange
places
county where it makes
sense
to have oranges.
There's an Orange County, New York, and I think that's it's a heraldry name. It's like the Duke of Orange or something like that.
Well, actually, see, that makes sense because New York City was originally New Amsterdam and founded by the Dutch, and I believe the royal house of the Netherlands was known as the House of Orange.
That would make sense.
Of course, they spelled it differently. I believe it was O-R-A-N-J, but...
Not according to Wikipedia. It was named after the Prince of Orange.
Oh. Well, yeah, but...
Yes. O-R-A-N-J-E, yes.
It's just the differences in spelling.
Yep.
But a branch of the European House of Nassau. And there's a Nassau County as well.
Yep.
So, yeah, that makes sense. So, for people who are probably wondering about last week and haven't followed on social media where I posted this, I want to give you an update on our dog Precious. And for those of you who are worried, she is doing fine. She doesn't appear to be in any pain. I know that it's kind of hard to tell with dogs, but the point being is she's not whimpering, she's not limping. She doesn't seem to be really affected by this. She does want to lick at her foot, and I don't know. I think that's more likely just the stitches itch. And so we've got her in a cone of shame, which she actually hates and wants to take off at every opportunity. She does want to walk a lot more than we feel safe doing. So I figure if she wants to walk on the foot, she's doing really well.
That is a good sign.
Yes. And she gets her stitches out next Monday, so we only have to put up with this for another week. She hates the cone. We hate the cone. There are times I think she's deliberately protesting because she will, run into things, scrape against the wall, run the cone into our legs. And I just feel like this is the dog equivalent of the prisoner with the tin cup against the bars. Mm-hmm. Just brr, 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 just, protesting as best she can.
Either that or she's hoping that one of these collisions will be enough and the cone will disintegrate and vanish into the ether.
Well, she actually managed to remove the veterinary cone at one time. We took her out for a walk, and she pranged it into the ground, and I don't really know how, but she managed to shuck out of it. What we ended up doing was getting a cone off of Amazon that is a lot more flexible and has a fabric edging around the edge, which is great because not only does it reduce the noise, but also, when she runs into us, it doesn't hurt as much. And it's got a Velcro closure on it, so, we can more easily take it off because, walking with a cone is just not fun and eating is difficult. So what we do is we periodically give her cone breaks, when she wants to go for a walk, we take it off because it's easier for her to sniff. And when it's her supper time, we take it off so she has an easier time eating. And so she does get periodic breaks, and we keep an eye on her to make sure that she doesn't start licking. And then once she's done, we put it on her. And she doesn't like it, but she doesn't actively fight. But we can tell that it's not a fun thing. I don't blame her. And so we're all going to be so much happier in a week when she gets it off.
Yeah, so just one more week. So that's That'll feel like an eternity, but it will be over soon.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's that is good to hear. Also, her walking on it. I mean, one issue is the tension on the skin for that style of closure. Removing a tumor from the leg, you often it's hard to come up with enough skin to close everything back up again. And so yeah, that's good that she's not like painfully tight, you know, needing for that skin to grow loose and stretch out and all that. So that's awesome that she's doing so much better. And and then she will have it out. There's also a natural instinct for most animals, including humans. You know, you cut your finger and you immediately stick it in your mouth as a means of cleaning it. So the licking. So of one's wounds,
I took a look.
Go ahead.
Finish.
Or the licking of one's wounds is a very natural reaction.
So I actually took a look at her incision site the other day, and it looks pretty good. I mean, it's very obviously an incision, and there are stitches, but it's not like, really red and inflamed and, nasty looking. It looks like it is healing really, really well. There's like a little tiny bit of rawness right at the base of it, sort of in that space where the palm pad. Okay, if you imagine a dog's paw and compare it to your wrist, or compare it to your hand, the place where your palm ends and your wrist begins, it's just a little raw there. But it doesn't look bad. It didn't look like, swollen and inflamed and nasty. It was just, okay, that part's still healing. But the rest of it's doing really, really well. I've got an easily upset stomach, and I didn't get grossed out looking at it. So I'd say that she's healing really well. And I was really impressed with how they were able to close that.
Yeah, you said they left a drain in it, right? Or no? Because they said that there would be a little bit of weeping. If you mean,
is there a... Yeah, but when you said a drain, that makes it sound like they left a spigot or something.
That sometimes does happen. They will sometimes put a small piece of surgical tubing and secure it into the wound as a direct drain, but also sometimes they will just suture it up nice and tight, but leave one end a little bit open.
Well, they didn't include any sort of piping that I can tell.
Okay, yeah, you'd know. It'd be obvious.
Yeah,
but either way, there's nothing leaking either.
I mean, there's not now. There was when we first took her home, and we were told to expect that.
Yep, yeah,
and so we had some little blood drops over the next few days. But I mean, we got her home on Monday, and I think by Wednesday it had stopped.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, that's that is all good sign. Yeah, that is to be expected, but it should stop about the timeline you've got. So she's doing awesome. That is great to hear.
And again, she's gonna be 14 years old by the end of the month, so not a young dog. And so we're very impressed with how well she's healing. Well,
it's also said. I mean, you didn't mention this on the show, or you might have mentioned this on the show. I know you gave the long description for the for the ACP blooper reel, but the
oh, that's right. Yeah, I didn't for this.
Yes, but the but
okay. Yeah. So very short version for the viewers who now haven't figured it out yet. Our other dog, because we had to put Daisy down in August, I think I've mentioned that. Our other dog, Precious, she had a tumor. And we noticed it sometime this year, and it was, well, I don't remember exactly how I described it beforehand. But anyway, it was like on the back of her right leg, and it started swelling and swelling and swelling, and it got to about the size of a golf ball. And then it started bleeding, and it started interfering with her walks. And originally the vet said, well, let's just leave it alone because... if I remove it, I don't know if we'll be able to have enough skin. And then it got so big and then started bleeding that we decided that surgery was going to be necessary. And then one night it just started bleeding nonstop, soaking through a bandage. And we took her to the ER, and the ER vet said, yeah, we got to operate on this now because parts of the tumor are necrotic. And, gangrene's never a good thing. So a surgery that was going to happen that we had scheduled for December 16th, 3 weeks ago. It was just yep, it's happening now. So more information than you probably wanted.
But the point that I was trying to say is
she's doing fine.
One of the questions you had was, we can do this surgery now and see how it goes, or because she's an older dog, we could euthanize her. And you mentioned the fact that because she was older, that's certainly something that crosses one's mind, is whether or not this is going to be worth it for her and everybody. But it sounds like you absolutely made the right choice if she's bouncing back.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, I've taken up enough of this segment. How are you doing, Weer'd?
I am doing just fine. I don't have anything particularly interesting to report. It's just been getting holiday season stuff going, and yeah, that's it. There was my daughter was up in Maine, and we could have had a nice, lazy, relaxing weekend, but instead my wife said, perfect, this is the time for us to get all the stuff done that would be a pain in the butt to drag her to. So there was a lengthy honey-do list that was tackled. And so it was a working weekend. So that's all I have.
But was it a good weekend?
Yeah, it was fine. It was fun.
Okay.
And yeah, so we had a good time, and but we were doing a bunch of stuff, and so yeah, that's that. I'll be able to talk a little bit more about some of it later, but yeah, that was that's it's Monday. It's time to get back into the grind.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so shall we talk about some news, Aaron?
Yeah, what a grind it is. Apparently there's been a lot of stuff happening over the week, and some of it good, a lot of it bad. I mean, this show is going to be mostly main topic with one segment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, Christmas busyness meant that everyone was. I mean, even David said that he might not be able to make a segment, and then he came through, and so we thank you for that. But it was one of those do we do a round table and all that? But I think we got enough news that we'll make time. We've been going long every week, so it's all good. But yeah, so first story that I wanted to talk about: Senate GOP blocks vote on assault weapons ban, universal gun background checks. So yeah.
So I want to point out that this is not the Go Safe Act, which we talked about last week. For a moment, I thought it was the same thing, but no, this is completely different.
Yeah, which is interesting. Since do we have a bill number for what this was? I didn't see anything in this news story, but it could just be one of the boilerplate bills out there. But it didn't go anywhere. They brought it forward. They talked about it, and it went the way as most assault weapons ban and universal background check stuff goes through. I will have to say it's been a little while since I've seen them talking about universal background checks. They were going hot and heavy on that for a good while. I mean, that first really showed up after Sandy Hook and really didn't settle down until a couple of years ago. But none of this stuff ever goes away, including the tried and true assault weapons ban. Never mind that it didn't work. We'll do it again, only harder.
I think this is Senate Bill 25. With House bills, it usually says HB for House bill. This one just says S.25, and I, presume S stands for Senate. I don't know why it isn't SB. My point being is that's why I'm not 100% sure. But, yeah, the assault weapons ban of 2023, introduced by Dianne Feinstein, to no one's great surprise. It was introduced at the end of January of this year. And what I find very interesting about this, and it was so odd that I actually had to ask our friend Connie Elliott to explain this to me because it didn't make sense. It still doesn't quite make sense, but for a different reason. So this bill was defeated because it and the universal background check and the gun storage requirement, they were all brought to the floor by unanimous consent requests. And this is different from the way, well, I can't really say it's different from the way Congress does these things, but usually there is a motion, there is a vote, there is this entire procedure on a bill. Unanimous consent is designed to speed things up. And the idea being is that you bring it before the body, whether it's the House or the Senate, and essentially, if any one person objects, then it's killed. And so all you need is for one person to object, as opposed to a regular motion where I don't know if it's a majority, if it's 3/5, if it's 2/3, but the point being the bar is a lot higher. And so these bills, which are all about gun control, which we've been told that the American people want, which the Biden administration has been pushing since before they were the administration, when they were trying to run. Despite all of this, the people who brought it forward made it trivially easy to be defeated. And I had no idea why. And so I asked Connie, why would they do this? Why would they basically play to failure? And she says it's because they want to be able to say that they fought for it without actually dealing with the consequences of its passing. And she explains, and my takeaway from this is that it's a lot like abortion. The Democrats had about 50 years to codify rules about abortion in our law, and they didn't, because it was easier to use the threat of an abortion ban to fundraise money and to get votes. And this is exactly that same thing. And by the way, I don't want people to think I'm singling out the Democrats. The Republicans do it as well. I'm drawing a blank at the moment, but I know for a fact that they do. And so this is just the way the political system works. Sometimes it is more politically gainful for the politicians to make a half-assed attempt and fail, and then go, oh, woe is me, I tried, rather than make an honest attempt to pass a bill. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm very happy that this bill failed, but it was just a moment of, what the heck? So, I do wonder how much of all of gun prohibition is purely performative, and I have no way of knowing.
I mean, I think the Second Amendment as a general rule is purely performative on both sides, because you were saying you want to put something for the Republicans. I mean, we're sitting here talking about, court case after court case and NYSERPA and all of these things. But all we really need is for a law to be passed that essentially says you have to you have to obey by the Constitution, otherwise we're going to cut off all your federal funding, or anything like that, where it's just the anti-gun states quit it. That we could do this. We got
real close with Bruin, but it kind of lacked teeth at the end.
Yeah, I mean, in 1994. Congress passed a law, and Bill Clinton signed a law that turned the entire United States into California, because California was the pioneer to invent the assault weapons ban, and they went straight ahead and made it federal law, and we all lived under it for 10 years. And so there's nothing stopping them from essentially codifying any of these things, disbanding the ATF because they're breaking all these rules, just making it so that it is direct federal law to go through. But they don't, because again, I don't know if there's too much blowback for being quote unquote an NRA stooge or shill, or what's going on. I certainly do suspect that there's been a number of polls and stories that Democrat gun ownership is higher than it's ever been. And of course, we know that the bulk of all guns being sold are double stack pistols and AR style rifles or similar. And so the guns that are being owned by everybody these days are the ones that are being targeted for the ban. We are having less, revolver sales are way, way, way down. Bolt action hunting rifles are way, way, way down. It's not the market. The market is definitely solidly in the world of guns that have very good practical use, and these people are not buying them to turn them back in. And so, and it doesn't matter if it's California or Illinois or New Jersey or Florida. All, these people that the Second Amendment's not a partisan issue. And so therefore there's nonpartisan gun ownership going everywhere, but there's a partisan push for gun control. And I think that may also lead to the desire for showmanship, for kabuki theater.
Well, as we said last week, you're Pollyanna, I'm cynical as hell. Neither of us thought that the Go Safe Act had a chance of passing. And so when I see that AWB 2.0, was basically strangled in the crib, this just bolsters that belief that I have that Go Safe is not going to go.
Yeah, I just skimmed the text of the bill, and it's linked in the show notes. Thank you for digging that up, Aaron. But it's just another warmed over. It's a standard, one evil feature test for semi-automatic guns that feed from a detachable box magazine. And so, yeah, if it runs from a detachable magazine and it has any of the evil features from the 1994 assault weapons ban features, but also with like the added effect of if you've got a vertical foregrip on the gun, that also makes it an assault weapon. So it was just warmed over boilerplate stuff. Like it probably was literally just warmed over. They just dug it out and kind of breathed on it a little bit and then submitted it, and then it got strangled in the crib, as you said. But I gotta say, I am not one for conspiracy theories of such things, and there's certainly some talk, especially around the Las Vegas shooting, that some of these spree killers may have been influenced by the government for that reason, and I don't believe that. I believe that inaction is a better explanation for this going on. But still, right around when this vote was being taken, there were two more or less mass shootings. I believe one of them. No, I think they both counted as. One was a FBI defined spree killing. That was this one in Texas. Let's see. Does it say where in Texas? I think it's Austin.
Well, they said Bexar County.
Okay.
And I'm not sure. I'm sure the Texans in our audience are screaming at us now, but I'm not actually sure what is there. Okay, that's the county of San Antonio.
Okay. But yeah, it says San Antonio and Austin. So this guy moved around a bit. But long story short, it was a person with a long history of mental illness. Furthermore, just to add on to it, they'd been booted from the, I believe, Army for a domestic violence incident. So that's a double whammy on prohibited person.
Yeah, so not just dishonorably discharged, but also under I think it's the Lautenberg Amendment. So, I mean, well, first of all, I don't think there's any indication that he got the guns legally to begin with, but the point being was, yeah, he couldn't. And, this guy had a lot of mental health problems and had been arrested previously on misdemeanor assault charges.
Yes.
And it's later on in the article, but he had been released on to home arrest with a tracking anklet monitor, and then like the next day he cut it off. So this is very obviously a very troubled individual. And so when we say that he started off his day by killing his parents and then drove around and killed 4 other people, this is someone with a very disturbed mind who should not have been out in public. This person really, really needed mental health help.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. Yeah, it sounds like they killed their parents to start the day, and then broke into one house, and there were 2 occupants in that house that they killed, and then 2 more, and then broke into another house and killed 2 more occupants. So,
well, he was also driving around and shot people, including an Austin police officer, and then like a bicyclist.
Yeah, but those people weren't killed. But yes, he I think he shot two different cops. One, he just shot at, and then another one was the police engaged him, trying to apprehend him.
I mean, I can't find how he came across this weapon.
I haven't been able to either.
I think it's probably likely he got it from his parents, because his parents were, well, I believe that they are the reason he wasn't in jail to begin with, because they were begging the police to, let him go, and, he's a good boy, and things like that. And at one point, the police came, and he was barricaded inside his bedroom, and for whatever reason, the deputies left and asked the father to call so that they could return and arrest him, but they were never called back. I don't really know why the police let them do that, why they didn't press the issue. But yeah, this is, once again, a case of a known bad actor with known mental problems, known to the police. I don't know why this was allowed to happen.
I just found a news story. It sounds like he did the whole thing with an Inland Manufacturing 1911 A1 pistol.
Okay.
So, I mean, that even adds insult to injury for the shrieking and gnashing of teeth of gun control people. Is not only did he do it with a handgun rather than a rifle, but a low capacity handgun. But then I mentioned that there was another shooting, and I mentioned Las Vegas, and evidently this shooter was obsessed with the Las Vegas shooting, among other things. But essentially, a college professor at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas.
Actually, no. He is a college professor, and the shooting did happen at UNLV, but he was not a professor at UNLV.
Okay.
And this was something that caught my eye, because I originally thought he was faculty, and no, he wasn't. I don't really remember if I can find where he was a professor at. It was somewhere on the East Coast.
Well, he was from North Carolina, and I know he taught at North Carolina, but
Okay, a professor with connections to colleges in Georgia and North Carolina.
Okay, yeah.
So the thing is, he didn't work there. Now, I've got some theories, but we'll get to those in a minute. So you've got a guy who is very clearly obsessed with Las Vegas, because his students have said that, every class for like the entire semester, he would start off the class by telling a Las Vegas story. So he was really, really obsessed with the city. Nothing inherently wrong with that. And he had made many trips, something like 15 or so, just a lot. And then he had apparently moved to Vegas, and for reasons which are still unknown, he found himself in financial problems because it appeared that he was unemployed. He had been served an eviction notice at his apartment, and he had built up a kill list of people that he wanted to kill at UNLV. And we know this because when the police arrived at his apartment to investigate, there was an arrow pointing to a chair that had his will and all sorts of other things. And this guy was obsessed with conspiracy theories. And, he claimed to have solved the Zodiac murder case and things like that. This is another guy who, clearly not, well, I started to say clearly not as crazy as the first guy, but then he went and committed murder, so maybe so. But the point being is, he didn't have the same history as the previous guy, but he was clearly disturbed about something because he had a kill list, and at this time, the police have no idea why he had it in for these people. And what's interesting is that of the people he killed, none of them were on his list.
Yeah, that was the big shocking is he's had a kill list. I guess he mailed letters out to many of them.
He mailed all sorts of letters out without return addresses, and a lot of them had powder in them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they were trying to replicate the 9/11 powder letter scare.
Yeah.
Where, what was it, anthrax?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. So my theory here, and it's based on nothing but a gut feeling, is that he was so enraptured with Vegas that he wanted to live out there, and he wanted to continue working, which makes sense. And so he applied for a job at UNLV, and he didn't get the job. And he blamed certain people for not getting the job. And that's why he had a kill list. I didn't get the dream job I wanted in the place where I wanted to live. I'm just going to kill people. But then he just pulls up and starts shooting people almost at random. You would think that he would target people. I don't know what's going on in this guy's mind, and we won't know because he was shot dead.
Yes, and that's one of the key things that I want to put through is that per the FBI definition, the shooting in Texas was absolutely actually not by the FBI because it was over multiple locations, and so I think that changes up some of the rules. But there were 6 dead there. In this case, there was 3 people that mattered and 1 that didn't. Meaning the shooter was killed by the police. But the police responded like in one of the linked stories, it lists the police response time as 78 seconds. And so the police were right there and engaged. And I think that is one of the reasons why the count was so low is it's impossible to get that number down to 0 because that's, the clock starting is when the person's actually engaging people directly and often from a case of surprise. So the idea of if you're the first person selected, the chances of you getting killed in that in that initial wave is pretty good. But the fact that the police were able to engage so quickly and disrupt whatever plans he may or may not have had, and getting him so that it's off the offense and onto the defense is, the reason why we say to do that. And again, praise the police officers who do that, especially when we have Uvalde and Parkland and all that, where heads didn't roll. It's you can take the easy way out and not be a hero, and you'll probably get away with it.
In fact, in one of the linked articles, there's a video which I watched, and parts of the video were, I don't know if this was police or sheriff or whatever, but someone speaking on behalf of law enforcement. He felt the need to repeat and stress that the police, when they showed up, responded immediately. And that was just a very subtle dig, I think, at the Uvalde police and Broward County police, who pulled up and then waffled about for an hour. And so, yeah, he wanted to make sure everyone knew that his police officers or deputies or whatever did not screw around and immediately engaged. And so I like that.
Yeah, no, that is awesome. And again, we need to praise this behavior and make sure that we mention it. We're actually, I'm trying to see if I've got the let's see. Yes, the officers. We don't name the killers here, but the officers that identified that actually engaged and killed the shooters were Detective Nathaniel Drum and Officer Damian Garcia. And so these were the guys that did it. They didn't have to, because like I said, the other officers have gotten away with it. But what are you doing if you're putting on the badge and the gun every morning? If you're not doing it to save lives, especially when it's something as wanton as this. So yeah, I suspect that if given the druthers, this guy this was also a handgun, and this guy had a lot of ammo with him. And so,
yeah, something like 11 magazines, somewhere around 150 rounds of ammo.
Mm-hmm. So the idea that he wasn't at least going to get a bunch more kills if given, and of course it's just a gun-free zone, so he was the only one with a gun on it until the cops showed up. Luckily, they showed up, less than 2 minutes after he started shooting. And so, this is, but had he had unfettered access, he could have lost his nerve like the Louisville, Kentucky shooter and just really didn't have it in him for, didn't have the taste for blood that he thought that he had. Who knows? But he also could have just kept going and really done a lot of damage, if not for these police officers. So again, thank you so much, officers, for that. I mean, the amount of bravery that goes through. I mean, I've said repeatedly, I've watched the body cam footage of the Nashville police that responded to the Covington school shooting, and it makes my blood run cold. Like, even though I know what's going on, seeing them take that stairwell and just the number of angles where you can get ambushed in a stairwell is outstanding. And they just took it like it was their job, because it was their job. And we shame the cowards and we shame the incompetent, but we praise the heroes.
Amen.
And then, all right, a last one is we have another ruling, and I think you were the first one to share this, weren't you, Aaron?
Well, yes, I was, because I, through Operation Blazing Sword Pink Pistols, had a little bit to do with it. Again, I want to make it clear, I'm not claiming credit other than this little tiny crumb is mine. But a ruling has finally been made on Antoniuk v. Negrelli, and who knows, it'll probably be appealed. And I say finally because we filed our amicus brief February 8th. It was argued, I think, March 20th? March 8th? Okay, anyway, the point being is they argued it in the spring, and it took something like 8-9 months for them to finally make a decision on it. I had forgotten about it by this point, but the ruling finally came, and it's not a complete win, because the court did affirm some things, including the good character clause of New York's Concealed Carry Improvement Act. But the good news here is that 3 key features were blocked from being enforced. And those things which were blocked are restrictions on carrying concealed firearms on private property that is accessible to the public, restriction in carrying in houses of worship, and then the one that we backed because we partnered with the Knight First Amendment Institute of Columbia University the requirement that applicants needed to disclose 3 years' worth of social media activity. And so it's very rare. I mean, honestly, this is the first time I've ever seen that a Second Amendment case was argued on First Amendment grounds. And that was one of the things which was struck down as being, I don't know if they said unconstitutional, but the point being is that, yeah, New York can't enforce this part of the law anymore. And there were other people who filed as well. Knight Institute paired with a whole bunch of us, including the Liberal Gun Club, the Asian Pacific American Gun Owners of America, and the National African American Gun Owners Association, NAAGA. I feel like I'm missing a letter there. But the point being is we paired with them. Oh, and the DC Project. And so we all got together, and the Knight Institute really, they spearheaded this particular section of it. They approached us, and we just gave our blessing, and they wrote it. They did it all for free. And so kudos to the Knight Institute. And so we have, at least temporarily, I guess the verb of an injunction is to enjoin. So we have at least temporarily enjoined New York from enforcing this horrible, censorious law. And that's really, really good news.
Yeah, it is really amazing, especially again, you got to give us the passwords to your social media accounts is one of those things of the, like, you know, especially it's number one stating that, you know, not give us the URL for your social media accounts, but like also so we can look at the private stuff that's going on. You know, there might be relationship stuff going on in there. There might be compromising photographs and all of that stuff. And you are compromising the security of your own social media to, I mean, a group of people that absolutely hate you. So, I mean, they're not doing this. They're doing this to try to find an excuse to take your rights away. You know, it's not we're going to find a spree killer, because again, we've just listed all of these people that were known to law enforcement and have caused a whole bunch of problems, and we're doing all sorts of stuff. And we're, you know, while we are saying that there are certainly some things that could have been done in those cases, and in some of the other cases where the police actually had them in custody or could have had them in custody, and could have prevented this by having them locked up, you know, just the nature of, oh, this person was into conspiracy theories. Oh, this person had recently broken up with their girlfriend. Oh, this person had, you know, done this. None of that stuff is indicative of being dangerous. And there's no predictor whatsoever of that. If there was, you know, we'd be actually talking about it, because that might be interesting to say. You know, we certainly talk about hey, cops, if you get a hold of a violent person, why don't you hold on to them? So this was purely punitive by nature. And so I am so glad that it is struck down.
I have no way of proving this, but I think that the main reason for it was to dissuade people from applying, either because they liked their privacy or because they didn't want to be shamed. They didn't want, you know, strangers looking over it and laughing at them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm sure that there are other factors involved as well, and I'll even give the benefit of the doubt and say they probably were looking for indicators of bad behavior. Although, really, when you look at it, you shouldn't need to prove your innocence in order to exercise an enumerated right. But again, I think most of this was purely social and psychological pressure. We're going to make this difficult for people so that most of them say it's not worth the effort. And that's what I mean by censorious, because people would either have to censor themselves in order to exercise their right, which is abominable, or they would have to censor their actions. You know, hey, I want to do this, but I don't want the grief, so I'll just not, file the permit and get the gun. It was just a massive invasion of privacy and unconstitutional. And I'm very glad to see this struck down. Look, I know that New York is going to repeal this, or appeal. I keep confusing repeal and appeal tonight. Look, New York is going to appeal this because, as we saw immediately after Bruin, New York decided to stick its fingers in its ear, go la 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 la, I can't hear you, and try everything twice as hard. So they're going to fight this as long as they can. They will fight until they are completely beaten senseless by the courts. But I look forward to that. And nothing succeeds like success. And this is a success for us and for gun owners everywhere and for freedom everywhere. And so this makes New York's challenge that much harder.
No, I agree. And I'll go a step further and say that, no, this is entirely there just as an excuse to deny someone. And it might even be simple as saying, oh, here we found these pro-Trump posts in there. And, which might be a pretty good indicator. Maybe you're not necessarily in love with Donald Trump, but compared to Joe Biden, who has been vocally the most anti-gun president in the history of this country, well, when faced with that, then Trump's a pretty decent alternative. You've got these pro-Trump stuff, Trump is a terrorist or whatever you have that, they want to try to tar him with. And so therefore, that's good enough reason to deny you, because that's the whole point of, the nice, that was the whole thing that made them mad in NYSERPA was, we'll just have all but the upper crust of New York will get denied their right to have a permit. And so this is just another excuse on the, if you're not the chosen people, then we'll find something that will deny you on.
So we all know we need to dry fire more, but how do we do that? Because it's such a pain with semi-autos. David is here to talk about the best ways that you can practice your dry fire.
Hi, and welcome to Gun Lovers and Other Strangers. With winter settling in for much of the United States, outdoor range time can be limited, and not everyone has access to a nice, cozy, climate-controlled indoor range. So in this segment, I'd like to talk about dry fire practice. Simply defined, dry fire is all the elements of shooting except without live ammunition. Stance, grip, sights, trigger control, and, to a degree, follow-through can all be practiced in comfort. The most important things to keep in mind when engaging in dry fire practice are, first, no ammunition in the area while practice is occurring. Check everything several times to make sure both the gun and the room are clear of all ammunition. Next, the 4 rules of safe gun handling still need to be followed. Even though the gun isn't loaded, it's still a real gun or gun-shaped object. By maintaining vigilance at all times, we can reduce negligent firearm incidents. The life we save may be our own, or that of an innocent director of photography. Dry fire practice with a revolver is, in many ways, much easier. The trigger can simply be pulled over and over without any additional steps throughout the process. However, with a semi-auto, the firing mechanism needs to be reset manually after each trigger pull. There are really only 3 options to deal with this issue. Rack the slide or, if appropriate, recock the hammer after each shot. Get one of the DryFire magazine solutions, assuming compatible pistol, that are available on the market, such as the appropriately named DryFireMag. Or, last but not least, buy a dedicated dry fire simulator such as the SIRT pistol. There are pluses and minuses to all of these options. Going the manual route is certainly the least expensive, but it means only being able to fire single shots. Great for a beginner or maintaining muscle memory, but it gets pretty frustrating pretty quickly. An accessory such as the DryFireMag is a good solution for removing this limitation. In addition, the user keeps the feel and trigger experience of the host handgun. However, it is an added expense. They are limited to certain models of handgun, and many of these systems won't work with a firing pin activated laser cartridge. A SIRT pistol, while more expensive, allows for everything except manipulating the slide. Spare weighted magazines are also available for practicing reloads on the clock. Speaking of on the clock, a shot timer is a good thing to have both for dry and live fire practice. The initiating beep can be set for a random amount of time, and some of the newer ones can detect dry fire operation. When dry firing, I like to use as a target something I do not use on the live fire range. This helps segregate the two environments. Dry firing on a hot range isn't an issue. The opposite certainly would be. In addition, there are also systems like the MantisX that incorporate a dedicated target, a laser cartridge, and, via Bluetooth, a smartphone. This allows us to practice and record our results for later review. While dry firing won't damage a modern centerfire firearm, it's not recommended with rimfires. This is because the firing pin protrusion in a rimfire may impact the edge of the chamber, possibly damaging the firing pin, displacing the metal from the breech into the cartridge feed path, or both. Certain older centerfire handguns, such as the CZ52, are also known for having weak firing pins. One way to reduce this issue is to place a fired cartridge in the chamber or chambers in the case of a revolver. However, with a striker-fired semi-auto, it'll likely get ejected each time the mechanism is reset. Another option is what are called snap caps. These are plastic or aluminum cartridges with a rubber cushion in the primer position. With most handgun calibers, they come 5 or 6 to a pack. This allows multiple rounds to be cycled through the gun during practice. For our listeners who reload, we can also make our own snap caps, following the same process movie armorers use to make what are called hero rounds. Take an empty case, drill and chamfer a couple of holes through it, toss in a few BBs for weight and sound, then seat a bullet and crimp as normal. The final step is to put a drop of silicone caulk in the primer pocket to act as a cushion for the firing pin. When dry firing, try to incorporate as many operational elements as possible, such as drawing from the holster, magazine changes, one-handed, both primary and offhand, and different positions, just for a few examples. Try to engage in dry fire practice on a regular basis. A good start is 15 minutes a day every other day. If possible, move this up to every single day. The benefits on the range will make themselves known in short order. Have fun and safe shooting.
Hey guys, Jerry Miculek here. I'd like to share with you some of the dry fire drills that I do.
That about wraps it up for this segment. If you have any questions for me or suggestions for future segments or a comment on a past segment, please post them on the Assorted Calibers Podcast Facebook or MeWe pages, and Aaron or Weer'd will make sure I see them. I'm also a contributor on the Blue Collar Prepping blog, which can be found at bluecollarprepping.blogspot.com. Finally, I'm a published author, and books with my stories can be found on Amazon under the names Brena Bock and David Bock. That's all for now. Thanks for listening. I'm David, and this is Gun Lovers and Other Strangers.
I must say, not only is dry fire better with revolvers, everything is better with revolvers. Revolvers are wonderful. Well, except
capacity.
Except for capacity, yeah. I mean, I say about my love for revolvers, and I do love revolvers. And yeah, today I was carrying a semi-auto. And the day before I was carrying a semi-auto, and the day before that, and the day before that. I'm trying to remember. I did break out my LCR a little while ago and was carrying that, but. Yeah, let's face it. the revolver is antiquated in most applications, but boy, they're nice.
What's that 122 revolver that has like an obnoxious number of chambers in it?
Well, Oddball and I both have Smith & Wesson 617s that have 10 shots. I'm trying to remember.
I thought it was more than that.
I'm trying to remember if there's somebody that there was. I think there was one person that had. There was one company that made a 12 round 22. I still think it would be funny for Smith & Wesson to take their X-frame revolver and drill as many charge holes as they can. It'd be awesome if they could get 22 rounds of 22 into a 500 Magnum cylinder.
Yeah.
But
I mean, if it weren't 22, if it were in a more social caliber, like 38, 9mm, something like that, maybe you could sway me to the wheel gun side of things. But I know that for the more substantial calibers, in order to have that, you'd have to have just a big old chonker of a gun.
Yeah, they've got the Smith & Wesson 628, I believe it is a 357 Magnum revolver, and it's an 8-shot, but it's an end frame, so it is literally a Dirty Harry sized gun, and it's still only 8. Mm-hmm. So yeah, no, you're as a general rule, you're much better off with Meanwhile, I carry around a 10+1 micro pistol in my pocket with 9mm. So yeah, we're really the future's pretty nice. But all that being said, David mentioned about the striker fired pistols and having to rack the slide every time. Well, just like some people, I'm personally in the no staging camp for shooting. My finger comes off the trigger and then goes right back on for every shot. But that's because I'm a revolver shooter. But but just like people that can stage the reset of their of their striker fired semi-auto, you could do the same thing with a striker fired gun for racking the slide. Is you don't need to pull it all the way back. I found that most of my striker fireds, you can pull it back. It's about halfway and you'll hear a click. And that means that the striker has reset and you can run it forward. And so that also means that if you're running a snap cap or a spent casing, like David was mentioning in there, you can probably, especially with a snap cap or something that has a full length cartridge in it, you can probably bring it back far enough that it won't completely eject the case. And so you can just then let it come back forward and you've reset it.
So my mind went off on a little wander because we were talking about high capacity revolvers and we'd have to have a big old chunky cylinder. And then I remembered that one gun in Alien Nation where James Caan picks up a big old revolver, and I went and I looked it up, and it's a Freedom Arms Model 83 chambered in 454 Casull. And I was young enough that when I saw that, I had to ask my father, but that only has 5 bullets in it. Revolvers have 6. Why does that one only have 5? And my father explained to me that the bullets were just so big that they could only physically fit 5 into the cylinder. And then this reminds me of one of my favorite anime, ever, but it came out in the 1980s, and it's got a silly name. It's called Bubblegum Crisis. It has nothing to do with bubblegum. The idea is that the crisis is like when you're blowing a bubble and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and eventually it's going to explode and there'll be a big mess of sticky gum all over your face. Great anime, dumb name. But in that anime, one of the characters is a cop, and his name is Leon McNichol. And the designers of the anime were really, really into mecha, and guns fall in that category. And so they took the Alien Nation concept and then I think went one step further, because Leon has a big-ass revolver. I don't know what caliber. It only holds 3 shots. And I'm not certain. I think he loads it like a Webley. Yeah, it's a big gun. So that's where my brain went.
Yeah, no, and also the statement behind the whole Freedom Arms 454 was they also needed enough wall of the cylinder to contain the pressure of that high pressure round, because 454 Casull is a stump puller. You have that with there's certain generations of Ruger Super Red Hawks in 480 Ruger that are that hold 6 shots, but they actually step back, I think, because they must have had some cylinder failures, and they step back where some of them only hold 5 because they wanted to space those chambers out just a little bit more to get a little bit more meat to them. It's also the reason why we have we had 44 Magnum before we had 454 Casull, because Elmer Keith blew up a single action army shooting 45 Colts that were loaded ridiculously hot, and after that day he decided he was only going to be working with single action armies that were in 44 Special, because the cylinder walls were a little bit thicker.
So according to the Googles, the pistol used by Leon McNichol, I guess this is a model name as opposed to a number, but apparently it's called the Earthshaker, and it's chambered in, of course, they're Japanese, so they do it in millimeter, and it's 15.3 millimeter armor piercing, which a quick conversion is 60 caliber.
Yeah, I'm looking at a picture of it right now, and yeah, it's a top break revolver, and yeah, it's got just 3 shots in there, and they are there's a lot of room around them. So yeah, that can be loaded up to moon launch pressures.
Well, I mean, considering that his job as part of the 80 police is to essentially hunt down rogue androids and robots, sort of like Blade Runner, he needs a big beefy gun to take out the cyber psychos. Mm-hmm. So, back in the 80s, that was like, oh, dang. And now we've got ARs that chamber. Well, don't we have ARs that can handle 60 caliber? I mean, isn't that what Grendel is?
That's 6 millimeter. We could. There's no reason why we couldn't, but there's because of the NFA, pretty much it maxes out at 50 caliber. So there's what is it? 50 Beowulf is probably the fattest cartridge that you'll toss out of an AR-15.
Okay, yes, I was thinking of 6.5 Grendel, and that's 6.5 millimeter. Oh well.
Yes, but there's also it'll convert your gun to bolt action, but you can get a 50 BMG upper for your AR-15 to solve those problems that you might have.
Yeah.
Decepticons.
Anyway. Just to wrap up this completely off the wall nerding, if you're interested in investigating BGC, and I recommend you do the original, the one set in 2032. Completely ignore the one set in 2040. Also, forget the spinoff Bubblegum Crash, because in my opinion, it's awful. If you want to watch just one episode to get an idea as to whether or not you want to watch it, I recommend you watch, I'm trying to remember what episode it is. It's called Revenge Road. And I think it's like episode 4. And it's completely standalone. And, I think it'll tell you everything you need to know. You won't know who some of the characters are, but, it's just like when you watch a first episode of anything, you get introduced, and I think it's a perfect standalone. If you like that episode, you'll like the rest of the series. If you don't, you're only out like 30 minutes. So give it a try. It's got my seal of approval.
Well, that's awesome. I may have to track that down.
So, yeah, I got completely off the weeds in my nerdom. I do apologize for that.
Yeah, but we got Aaron Paulette talking about revolvers, so I'm going to call that a victory.
But you know who I also get off in the weeds for?
That would be our listeners. We got to thank each and every one of them. Thank you so much for listening to our show. We appreciate that. And also thank you so much to our supporters on Patreon. To become a Patreon patron, go to patreon.com/AssortedCalibersPodcast to sign up. Get an early release of the podcast. Plus, we've got bonus content for you, like the blooper reels, the ACB film tracks, and the ACB Mag dump.
Also, please remember to rate us on Apple Podcasts, the only place where you can rate us. Subscribe to us on the platform of your choice, and share the show with your friends, both online and off.
I got a blog. It's called WeirDWorlds.com, and you can also hear me weekly on Handgun Radio, and that's on the Firearms Radio Network.
And you can get more from me at Linktree/Aaron Paulette. That's linktree.ee/Aaron Paulette, all one word.
And this music, it's by Nate Spencer, and I think it's awesome.
I don't pronounce the L in salmon, and he doesn't pronounce the L in caulk. Our pronunciations are assorted, and so's our podcast. This won't make any sense to you unless you listen to the blooper reel. Good night, everyone.
Good night.